Ah, yes, the devil's in the detail. Well, joining us is Jim Shields, head of French Studies at Aston University. Always a pleasure to speak with you, sir. The secret of Sarkozy's success Sunday night, your thoughts on that?
Well, this has been in many ways the oddest of elections, a landslide victory for the centre-right, but no real appetite, no real discernible appetite in France for the UMP or Sarkozy. A disastrous collapse of the socialists, on the other hand, but some relief that it could have been even worse. And a Front National at 25%, which finished last week as, yes, arguably the first party in France, but finished yesterday with the tiniest fraction of the spoils, something like 1.5% of the seats available. So to that extent, Sarkozy has pulled off a coup. He's done it due to two things mainly. The unity that he managed to patch together on the right and centre-right, and including the centre, and also the system. The system played in his favour yesterday and did for the Front National, and that is what has largely inflated the UMP's victory.
Largely inflated, you say, and of course there is that alliance with smaller parties from the center. Over the weekend, Jim, left-leaning tabloid Libération headlining this anti-Muslim right with a photo of Sarkozy splashed across the front page of it. And on that score, is Sarkozy's message that of the mainstream right?
This is the key problem Sarkozy now faces. He's got his victory under his belt yesterday, but the challenges ahead are very real for Sarkozy, one of which is to hold together what your package called this fragile alliance of the right and the centre. Where does Sarkozy go with his eye on the presidency to increase his support base? He naturally goes to the far right. He's done this before, and I suspect that his natural tendency would be to do it again. If he does try to do it again, of course, he will strain his centrist alliance probably to breaking point. So he has a real strategic dilemma here. But it's only one of the challenges that he has. For example...
But hang on. Let me just ask you about that challenge. You're saying that it'll be to breaking point with the center. Now, we saw in the last presidential election, some of the centrists opt instead for a socialist candidate at the time, François Hollande. This time around, who are they going to turn to?
Well, the centrists held the key, in a sense, to past presidential elections. Where they're going to turn is a big question. François Hollande arguably made a huge mistake once elected to the presidency, not to look to the centre for his alliances. Instead, he has tried to govern from a socialist centre point and has alienated the far left and has also alienated the centre. So at the moment, the centre sits with the right, but will it sit so comfortably with a right under Sarkozy? Or will it sit more comfortably with a right under, for example, Alain Juppé or François Fillon? That's really one of the big questions.
All right, let's pick up on those two names you mentioned, both of them former prime ministers. Alain Juppé, also a former foreign minister of Sarkozy's, and had been dubbed as the favorite within Sarkozy's party to get the nomination. After last night's result, would you say all that's changed, Jim Shields?
It's going to be arguably more difficult for Juppé and certainly for Fillon, but let's focus on Juppé, who's in a sense the favourite rival to Sarkozy on the right. It's going to be a bit more difficult for him to make back some of the ground lost to Sarkozy yesterday. But let's have a look at Sarkozy's agenda over the next couple of years. First thing he's going to try to do is relaunch the party. He's going to try and carry out a root and branch overhaul of the UMP, change its name, change its statutes, change its cadre. Then he has the regional elections in December, and there the Front National risks being a lot more dangerous as an opponent. After that, next year, he has the primaries, where he will come up against Juppé, and finally, if he makes it to them, he has the presidential elections in 2017. So there's quite a long and difficult obstacle course ahead of Sarkozy, and Juppé will be watching as he crosses or falls at each of these obstacles.
All right, and Sarkozy making no statements on the no tour of the breakfast radio shows this Monday. Many say it's because an investigating magistrate is going to be speaking with him this week once again over allegations of illegal financing for his 2007 run for president. Do his judicial problems, do they really hurt him at this point in time?
They might come to hurt him, but clearly they haven't. Before he took back the leadership, there was a lot of talk that really he couldn't be back in frontline politics until his name was cleared. It didn't stop him then. It hasn't stopped him pulling off his big victory yesterday. Given the French judicial system, given the possibilities of appeals and further appeals, his legal problems could, in a sense, be kicked into the long grass until after 2017, at least.
So if it is the same old Sarko, is that a good thing or a bad thing for him?
Well, if we look at how he tried to persuade the French electorate that he had changed in 2012, it didn't succeed, but he tried to say, I'm a new man, I'm approaching things differently. But we keep seeing him revert to type. We keep seeing the old Sarko come back out again. He's more comfortable with the Sarko that won in 2007, I think, than with the Sarko that lost in 2012. And the risk, in a sense, is that he will naturally go back to where he's most comfortable, which is pushing out to the hard right.
And Jim Shields, the Sarkozy who swings more to the right, it seems to be a winning ticket, though, at this point.
Well, it was a winning ticket dramatically in 2007 when he stole Jean-Marie Le Pen's clothes. It was not a winning ticket in 2012. Now the question is, can he update and revise and apply the same approach again? Can he neutralize Marine Le Pen's Front National? That's really what we are saying. And there's no evidence that he can do that. He was massively helped yesterday by the system. Here we had a Front National at 25% last week and at 1.5% of the seats available yesterday. That wasn't Sarkozy's doing. It was the system, which in first rounds of French elections now is three-party, and in second rounds continues to be bipolarized, and for the spoils to go mostly to the bigger of the centre-right or centre-left camps. That's where Sarkozy sat yesterday.
And as you were saying, Jim, it'll be a different kettle of fish come the regional elections, which have proportional voting later on this year. Jim Shields, thank you for joining us. Jim Shields of Aston University.
My pleasure.